My dad would go to every game. The first thing I do when I got to the ballpark is put Pete Rose Sr. 4 passes. And he'd go to the game, and he'd never stay after the game because he had to get home, he had to go to work. And this one particular night, I come out of the dressing room, and he's out by my car. And I'm thinking, oh, is my mom sick or something? What's going on? So I come up to my car, and I said, what's up, Dad? And he says, let me ask you a question. I said, what's that? He said, you know that second time up tonight, when you had a man on third and 2 outs, you hit that ball to the second baseman. I said, yeah. He said, did you run hard to first? And I thought back, and I said, because I was mad because I didn't get a hit, and it was a good pitch to hit. And I said, no, I didn't. He says, well, don't embarrass me. This is my town, and I taught you better. You run, and when you hit the ball, you run to the guy that says out or safe. He said, I'll see you tomorrow. And he was right, and I understood what he meant. That's the kind of dad you had. And he was watching me that close to know I didn't run hard on that at bat. And that's the way I was raised my whole life in sports, you know, to do it the right way.
If there is such a thing as the fountain of youth, it just might be the game of baseball. Come to any ballpark on any given night, any town in America, and look at the faces of grown men and women wearing hats, gloves, and jerseys of their heroes. They might be stockbrokers or truck drivers, moms and dads, but in that ballpark on that night, they're all kids again. More than any other game, baseball connects us with our childhood, where the diamond glows green in the summer sun. Glory is measured in 90-foot dashes. And those who transcend the game, who become heroes on this sacred diamond, define what it means to be an American legend. And for 2 decades, no man was more intent on leaving his mark on the game of baseball than Peter Edward Rose. Pete Rose wasn't the most gifted athlete to play the game of baseball. Far from it. He didn't have the pure athletic grace of Mickey Mantle or Joe DiMaggio's majestic swing. He couldn't race down fly balls in the outfield with the flowing stride of Willie Mays or have the raw power of Hank Aaron. But no one who ever stepped on a diamond played the game with more tenacity, more will, more just plain guts than Pete Rose. And on one warm September night in 1985, with one calculated swing, it wasn't about strength or speed. It wasn't about range or height. It was about heart.
I grew up on a little place called Anderson Ferry in River Road. The name of the town was Anderson Ferry. It's where the ferry boat goes from Ohio to Kentucky, right across from the airport. And I used to take the money on that ferry boat. It was 25 cents to go across. This is before they built the 275 bridge. So in those days, all the people from Indiana that wanted to go to the airport either had to go all the way downtown or take the ferry boat. You know, the only time I get to really see downtown is when I used to go to every one of the Reds games. My dad and I would go to all the Reds games. And my mom would drop us off over by Frisch's, which was close to Crosley Field. Then we'd walk probably a mile to the ballpark, and after the game, we'd walk back that mile to beat the traffic and go back home. I remember one time a guy hit a home run over center field, which is only 390. It was the shortest center field in the history of baseball, I believe, 390. And it was the farthest right field in the history of baseball, 366. It was 328 down the left field line with the terrace. And a guy hit one, I forgot who it was, Wally Post or somebody hit one over the center field wall, and there was a train track over by 75, and it went in a train car, and the ball ended up in Louisville. That was the longest home run in the history of baseball. It went from Cincinnati to Louisville without hitting the ground. That's a long home run. The big game for us was when the Dodgers come into town, and that was because Don Zimmer grew up in the same neighborhood that I did. And our dads were Little League teammates. Dud Zimmer and my dad were teammates. And Don's older than me, but we both went to Western Hills High School, and we used to always go to the Dodger games, but he didn't get to play because he played behind Pee Wee Reese. But in those days, it was, Ted Kozlowski at first, Johnny Temple at second, Roy McMillan at shortstop, Don Hoke at third, Smokey Burgess and Ed Bailey were the catchers, and you had Gus Bell in the center field, and you had Frank Robinson in left field, and you had Wally Post in right field. And Johnny Temple was my idol when I was growing up, and he became my first roommate in spring training the year I made the Reds, which is kind of ironic. My mother had my uncle Buddy, my Uncle George, and my Uncle Al were all good ball players. I think I probably got my baseball side from my mom's side of the family, but my dad was a great football player. You have to remember, he played basketball for Christ Church. I was the ball boy. He played baseball for Trolley Tavern. I was the bat boy. He played football for Sailor Park. I was the water boy. So I went to all the games and saw the way he approached the game. And when I tell you my approach was the same as his approach, that's the truth. That's the way he played the game, whether it was basketball, football, or baseball. And I saw him one time make a tackle, and he got a knot on his elbow as big as a softball, and he left the field, and he went back in and put some tape around it with some ice, and the next play he intercepted a pass and ran 75 yards for a touchdown. I saw him do that.
Because they were as close as they were, it was almost a matter of learning that take no prisoners approach by osmosis. I think that the success that Pete's had in his major league career would be directly attributed to the kind of work ethic that his old man demanded of him, and basically approached the game the same way Pete approached the game of baseball.
First of all, I was an aggressive kid, and I remember one night we were watching TV at home on our 8-inch TV screen, about this big. That was our TV screen we had. And the St. Louis Cardinals was playing on TV, and there was a guy named ENOS SLAUGHTER, and he got a base on balls, and he sprinted to first base. And I was just 8, 9 years old, and my dad said, "Now that's the way you should approach the game." He said, because the faster you get to first, the faster you get to second, third, and home. And the faster you get to home, the faster you score a run. And I just did it. And I just did it. If you're never satisfied and you keep grinding, and I was very fortunate that I had a body that didn't get tired. I took care of myself. I never smoked, I never drank, still don't. You have to understand there's 3 things I've never seen in my life. I never seen my dad smoke, drink, or argue with my mother, with the exception of one time. And the one time was my mother gave my dad money to buy my older sister Carol a pair of shoes. It was summertime. I'm like 4 or 5 years, or maybe 6 years old. And he got off the bus, as he did every night, at 5:15, and he comes in, and Carol's standing there waiting for her shoes. And he throws me this box, and I open up this box, and it's a pair of boxing gloves. And my mom says, "Pete," that's what she called my dad, "where's Carol's shoes?" And he said, "She don't need shoes. It's summertime. This boy's got to learn how to defend himself." It's the only time I've ever seen my mom mad at my dad. But my sister, Carol, got the shoes the next day. And I kept the boxing gloves. I needed to give them back. But another thing my dad always did, always, he always emphasized winning. Sure, he wanted me to get hits. He wanted me to run the bases. He wanted me to play good defense. But he always emphasized winning. My father's philosophy was, if you want to stop and have something to eat on the way home, earn it. And how do you earn it? By winning, not necessarily getting hits, because you could go 0 for 4 and still win the game. He never put his personal goals ahead of his team goals. When we lost a game, my dad wouldn't even stop to eat. Okay, if we went into a slump, it was almost like going to Jenny Craig. I love the game of football better. I love football. I mean, football was fun. You know, I like the contact, and maybe because I wasn't the best baseball player on my team. The best baseball player on my Little League team was Eddie Brinkman. You know, he signed a big bonus contract with Washington Senators, and he was like a Babe Ruth in the Little League, and he was a Babe Ruth in high school. He had some good years up in Detroit, had some defensive records. He was a real good shortstop. Well, my uncle didn't get to see me a lot when I was playing in high school and stuff. That's what was good about the Dayton Double Amateur League, because it was in Dayton. It was in Dayton. 3 of the 4 teams were in Dayton, because he lives in Dayton, Ohio. My Uncle Buddy was a tremendous baseball player. He didn't have his biggest success to the age 30 when he could become a switch batter. That's why they saw the ability that I had to bat from both sides of the plate. And he was a scout for the Reds. He was a bird dog for the Reds. And at that time, there was all kind of speculation that you were going to sign here. And I remember a guy named Hal Newhouser flew in to watch me play up in Lebanon. He was the director of scouting for the Baltimore Orioles. And my uncle beat him to the punch. I leave Cincinnati, I arrive in Rochester, take a Greyhound to Geneva, New York, go to the ballpark the next day. The second baseman on the team is Tony Perez. He had left Cuba 3 months before he got out of Cuba. So they put him at third base and put me at second base. Now that was 49 years ago, okay? I met Tony Perez. I talked to him about 2 weeks ago for a half hour on the phone. I have no idea what he said.
P signed as a catcher. It was similar to me. I signed as a shortstop. I never played there, and P never cat. I mean, he never went behind the plate. And everything started right there. P was the guy to start to learn a new position. And he was a little rough at the beginning because he was a catcher. But, you know, he had so much talent, so much decided to play the game. And he played through that second half of the year, and he was great. I mean, he wasn't that great hitter or a great runner or a great had a great hand, but P wants to play, and he hustles all the time. That's why he won after the year. He won the hustle player of the year. He hustled, and that was great. And then I didn't see him until we got to the big leagues, and he improved the way he worked. He worked so hard. In 3 years, he was in the big leagues. And since then, everybody knows what he did.
You know, there's other things that God give you other than a great arm or great speed or great power. He gave me a great work ethic. He gave me a big heart, and he gave me determination. Those are God-gift talents too, I believe. You know, I don't think you're born with a little heart and you develop a big heart and become aggressive as an athlete. I think you either got it or you don't have it. You know, that's just my own personal opinion. Maybe I could be wrong.
He was a guy that was able to do things within the constraints, for want of a better word, of his talents. And he had to work his butt off to be as good as he was. I mean, he was not born with a lot of natural ability.
He always go to the field. When he went to the two lines, you know, on the field, he was baseball. I mean, he was a game he wants to play, and a game he wants to win. And he just he was do 110, 120% every day.
Yeah, I played under Johnny Double Hit No Vandermeer, great guy, and played in Tampa, Florida. That was my first full year. And Lee May was on that team. Lee could hit. I mean, I think Lee could probably hit today. I mean, he's just one of them guys who could hit, but he couldn't catch a cold. You know, and all of a sudden, whenever a pop-up went up, you know, most guys say, I got it. Whenever a pop-up would go up at Tampa Bay, Lee May would say, who wants it? And I was always the who was next to him. So it was over by the dugout. I had to get my butt over there and catch the pop fly because Lee's looking for help. I mean, I guess when Lee looked up, all he could see was the sky. He could never see the ball. So it was either myself or the catcher. And it was funny. Who wants it? That's what Lee used to say. Not I got it. And we had a good team. We won the championship. I was telling someone this the other night. We won the Florida State League championship, and we got Zippo lighters. That was our gift, a Zippo lighter. I didn't even smoke. How can you give 21-year-old kids a Zippo lighter for winning the championship? I mean, and that was my first time I was around, a guy with big league flavor, big league atmosphere. Johnny Vandermeer, he pitched the back-to-back no-hitters, first time and only time it's ever been done in baseball. And he was my manager. I remember we were playing in the instructional league in St. Pete in the winter of '62. And Hutch came down to watch us play. When I say us, I'm talking about me and Helms and Shamsky and Queen and all those guys that were on the Macon team. And Hutch was sitting with Earl Lawson, who wrote for the Post-Time-Star at the time. And I had a real good day over in St. Pete at Al Lang Field. And Hutch said, if I had any nerve at all, I'd take that Rose and just stick him in the lineup next year. And lo and behold, he did put me in the lineup. And the only bad thing about that is he never got to see me hit 300. He never got to see me make the All-Star team. He never got to see me win a batting title because, he died in the off-season in 1964. And he's the one who was manager of 63 and 64 when I was there. And he really gave me the job. I love Fred Hutchinson. He really gave me the job. He went out on a limb, and I guess that's another reason I understood that he went out on a limb and took Don Blasingame out of the lineup. And you kind of feel like you can't let a guy like that down. And he just got cancer, and he died real young. Because I hit 332 straight years, I was a special invitee, okay? Because I went to the Reds spring training on a Class A roster, which was very, very difficult to do. And we went to Fort Lauderdale, and we were playing the Yankees. And Mike Reba was one of our coaches and went to spring training. And Hutch, who was our manager, said, you can go do your running if you want to go and get dressed. And Mike said, well, stay on the bench. You never know. It might be an extra inning game. So what happened is I stayed on the bench. Where was I going to go? I had to wait for the bus from Fort Lauderdale to go back to Tampa anyway. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden we tied the score up, and they needed a pinch runner. And Hutch looked down the line at the bench, and there I was. He said, go pinch run for so-and-so. So I did, and then the next guy up hit a one-hopper, which the left fielder had to go about 2 steps to his left, and I kept right on going and went to third, and I did a head-first slide. Okay, so now it's first and third and 1 out. And the next guy hit a short pop fly to left field, and the shortstop, Tony Kubak, went back, and he took 2 steps back and caught it, and I scored, and I did another head-first slide into home. And I scored on a short sacrifice fly to left field. Now, after the game, Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford were in talking to the press, and Mickey said to Whitey, did you see that Charlie Hustle beat us today? And the next day in the paper it said, Charlie Hustle beats Yanks. And that's where Charlie Hustle came from.
It was always easy for a lot of people to root for Pete Rose. Why not? He looked more like the guys in the stands than the guys in the dugout. And more, he represented the dream that exists at the heart of America. That it doesn't matter where you're from, or how rich your parents were, or even how much natural talent you're blessed with. If you want it enough, you're willing to work harder than the next guy, even the most fantastic dreams have a chance to come true. That's why Pete Rose captured the imagination of the fans, because like the fans, Pete loved baseball. He loved the challenge, the precision, the hustle of it. But more importantly, he just hated to lose. Maybe to a fault in some people's eyes, hated to lose. And that passion is what drove Pete to be the first player through the ballpark gates every morning and the last one to leave at night. It's what drove him to spend countless hours in the batting cage, perfecting his swing. That's why he didn't take days off. And it's what earned him the nickname Charlie Hustle.
I waited for an opportunity to play, and I got an opportunity to play, and I got lucky and got some hits, and then they started writing good things about me here in Cincinnati, being a local kid. And first thing you know, opening day, 3 hours before the game, I signed a big league contract. And they gave me number 14 instead of 27 because I was a second baseman. I wasn't nervous at all because I was on cloud nine. I was too high. I was too high to be nervous. Until about a half hour before game time, the Cincinnati Enquirer photographer, he came down and he had my mom and dad with him, and he said, I want to get a picture for the Enquirer. Local boy starts at second base. And that kind of, made me realize what I was doing. Then the first time up, I was too nervous. I walked on 4 pitches. Earl Francis walked me on 4 pitches. I couldn't have swung if he'd have rolled it up there to me. I was so nervous. And then the next guy grounded out, and the next guy, Frank Robinson, hit a home run. So I scored the first run of the year that year. I remember Bob Skinner hit me my first error I made. Bob Friend, I got my first hit off of Bob Friend. And I was 0 for 12 or something to start the season off. But he stuck with me. But it's a little easier to play baseball when you come up to the Reds and you got Frank Robinson and Vada Pinson on your team. Those are two pretty good ball players. Frank Robinson, one of the top 5 players in the history of baseball. So it was nice to watch him play because he was fundamentally sound too, and he was really tough too. He'd break up double play like no one else would ever break it up. And I remember managers used to tell their pitchers, if you knock Frank down, I'm going to fine you. Because you don't want to knock Frank Robinson down because he'll get up and hit it out of Yellowstone Park. I got along good with those guys. I mean, as a matter of fact, in 1963, later on in the year, I got called in the office because I was hanging with the black players too much. Sounds strange, but it really happened. And why did I do that? Because the white players wouldn't associate with me. They didn't really accept me because I was this brash young kid from Cincinnati. I didn't care. I had a purpose. I was there to play baseball. I was there to help the Reds win. And I think Frank and Vada saw that.
Oh, Joe DiMaggio, we want you on our side. He's got the mark at 44.
There is no Joe DiMaggios out there today. I mean, there's no players of that caliber. I mean, the way he handled himself. I mean, he had to be a Yankee. I mean, he couldn't play in any other team but the Yankees. And Ted Williams was, I met him one time in spring training, and I asked him a question about hitting, and he hit me here, and he hit me here, and he hit me here, and he hit me there, and he had me so confused I didn't know what to do. And I said, Mr. Williams, I said, you might have been the greatest hitter ever. I said, but my philosophy is to see the ball and hit it hard somewhere. He said, well, it's working for you. And I just don't think a guy could worry about everything he worried about when he was in the batter's box. Ted Williams, I mean, I didn't know much about Ted Williams because I was always a National League guy. I knew about Stan Musial, and they're about the same time. That's why I didn't get to know a lot about Joe DiMaggio until I went to Vietnam with him. Then I know everything about him. In the winter of '67, I get a call from someone from the State Department, and he identified himself. And he said, would you like to go to Vietnam? And I said, well, not necessarily. And he says, well, Joe DiMaggio's going. I said, well, put me down. I said, to meet Joe DiMaggio, I'd, walk through hell in a gasoline suit. Joe didn't talk about hitting much. Joe didn't talk a lot of baseball. Joe was so humble. I mean, I can't imagine the feeling of those soldiers when he'd walk in there. I remember we went up and we landed on the Intrepid, which is that's something to begin with, to land on an aircraft carrier. And we got to sit in the pilots' meetings. And I remember a guy named Bob Fischel was with us too. He worked for the Yankees. And you have to remember, in '67, the Yankees weren't that good. And there's like 3,400 guys on this aircraft carrier. And when we're walking around, they always say your name and identify yourself. And it was funny, it's one of the funniest things I heard. I'm Pete Rose of the Cincinnati Reds. Hi, I'm Tony Conigliaro of the Red Sox. Hi, I'm Joe DiMaggio of the Yankees. Hi, I'm Jerry Coleman of the Yankees. Hi, I'm Bob Fischel of the Yankees. This one guy say, Jesus Christ, no wonder they lose. They're a bunch of old bastards. Joe started laughing. He said, we don't play no more, buddy. I can thank God for my first batting title in '68. And, not thank God, I can thank the scheduling guy who scheduled the games. Because what happened is we have a Saturday game and a Sunday game, and the season's over. And I'm battling Matty Alou for the batting title, who played for Pittsburgh, okay? He's playing in Chicago against Fergie Jenkins, and I'm playing in Cincinnati against Gaylord Perry. And there's like a half a point separating us from the batting championship. And thank God I had a day game, because he got 4 for 4 in Chicago, and I got 5 for 5 in Cincinnati. So here's two guys battling for the championship, the batting championship, and we got 9 for 9 that day. And the next day, I went 1 for 3, and he went 0 for 3, and I won my first batting championship. So it's probably never happened before, when two guys are battling within a point of each other for the batting championship, and they go 9 for 9 off of 2 Hall of Fame pitchers in the same day. That's pretty unusual to do that. And then the next year, '69, it comes down to the last at-bat for the batting championship against Roberto Clemente. Now, the only way I can lose the batting championship, I'm playing in Atlanta, and in those days, we already had 5th place all locked up, so we weren't going anywhere. And Pittsburgh was playing in Pittsburgh, is if I went 0 for 4 and Clemente went 4 for 4. Well, here we are. I'm 0 for 3, and he's 3 for 3. And my 4th time up, I dropped a bunt down in Atlanta and got a base hit, and he made an out. So I won my second batting championship on the last at-bat of the season. So, I think what that does, it learns you as a player that not only every game is important, but, and I learned that in '64 because we lost the pennant by 1 game. And every at-bat's important, because I won the batting championship on the last at-bat of the season, and I won the other my first batting championship in the last game of the season. I remember in those days, we would do anything to make extra money. I mean, anything. And I remember when we moved from Crosley Field to Riverfront, I bet Tony Perez $150 that I'd be the first player to go to the bathroom at Riverfront.
I went there earlier, very early, and I think it's going to be the first one. I didn't see anybody around. I got over there, I sit down, and the first thing I hear is, "Hi, doggy, good morning." I say, "Oh, no. P, you here?" Yep. He was there.
And I got to the ballpark at 11 o'clock for a 7:30 game. And I'm sitting in there, as he calls, the happy place, doing my thing. And he stuck his head in there. He said, "You in there already?" He got there 10 after. I beat him by 10 minutes, but I won $150.
He beat me. He was funny. I mean, he always, I tell you what, he tried to win that one too, and he did. And I tried to beat him, but come down again. But that was Pete.
I got to figure this way. If people are paying money to see you play, your obligation is to do everything you can to win the game, okay? Don't cheat the fans. Don't cheat the people, okay? There's days when I didn't feel good. Why should I take it down to people who was in those days paying $8.50 to see a baseball game, okay? You're having a problem at home. Don't take it down to people who are paying the money to see you play. That's your obligation. It doesn't matter what kind of game it is. I played no different in the '70 All-Star game than I did in 1953 playing at Bullface Park. I would give a recommendation to anybody that's listening. If you're trying to block a base, you don't have the ball, and I'm coming toward the base, you're in trouble. You're in for some trouble.
Well, I wasn't surprised. I know Peter, like I say, he want to win any game. He want to win any game he play, and Fossey, he was on his way. I mean, he trying to block the play, and he blocked the play to the wrong guy in that situation. I think there's no ways, but he may be somebody else. Somebody else might sleep and not trying to not to get hurt or whatever, because he was all-star game with not Pete Rose. No? And I wasn't surprised what he did. The only thing I know will win the game, and P was sorry about Fossey later, because I think he spent dinner with him the night before. I said, no matter. For I was a catcher, and P and I were friends for a lot of years, and I was trying to block the play on P. I didn't do it because I knew he was going to give me out of the way, though.
Now I'm just going to let the guy tag me out in the 70 All-Star game in front of 56,000 Cincinnati fans, and my dad was in the audience. I wouldn't be able to go to my car. That's just the way it is. I mean, you can criticize it, and the only bad fan mail I got, by the way, was from American League towns. But that's why we won 16 out of 17 games, because we took the game seriously. I can't imagine Willie Mays getting on an airplane and flying from San Francisco to New York to get one at-bat and say goodbye. He would get pissed. He'd won 4 at-bats. Hank would won 4 at-bats. They're going to waste their time playing a game. They won 3 or 4 at-bats, and they want to win. That's why we won the games. I mean, I remember my first All-Star game. I got Aaron on this side of me and Mays on this side of me. And I'm, what am I doing here? And these are 2 guys you read about your whole life. You're sitting right, and that's why I love those guys, because they treated everybody like they were part of the team. They didn't treat you according to how much money you got or how much your batting average was. You were a teammate. And when we got there, we wasn't ready to play there because our pitching staff was just depleted. I mean, Wayne Simpson was hurt and Jim Merritt was hurt, and we only won 1 game. I think the game we won, our best relief pitcher, Clay Carroll, started. So we were disarray as far as the pitching staff. But then once you play in a World Series and you get that feeling, you want to do it every year.
I had Frank Robinson there. And Frank, he was a guy who I admired for so many years, because he was there my first year in Cincinnati. And then they got Bruce, and Bruce really killed us. Robinson, the other Robinson, he really killed us. With his glove, and then he hit.
He had one of them series that you dream about. I mean, he just was phenomenal. I mean, Brooks is a really good player. I mean, he's the 2nd greatest third baseman in the history of baseball, I think, after Mike Schmidt. He just had one of those World Series that I was happy I was a part of to get to see it. I mean, he was phenomenal. My 3 greatest feelings is my 3 World Championships. And my 3 worst feelings is the 3 World Series I lost. So, in other words, 18 of my 24 years were a failure in the big leagues, because I only went to 6 World Series in 24 years. I would rather be like Joe DiMaggio and play 13 years and go to 10 World Series, as opposed to playing 24. And that's why I kind of feel sorry for Ernie Banks. He never got to play in a World Series. I kind of feel sorry for Willie Mays. He didn't play in many. Hank Aaron, he's only played in 1. I mean, those players are the kind of players that should be in the October Classic. The Roberto Clementes, he shined when he played in the World Series. So your great players belong in the World Series, which is better for your game, because it sells your game. And you want your A-Rods and your Jeters and those guys playing in the World Series, because they're the best players in baseball today. All I have is fond memories of my father, okay? No bad memories about my father. And I don't think, if you never went through that, I don't think you really realize it until you walk in the funeral parlor and the guy's laying there. That's the first time I realized it, when I walked in there. Because up to that time, I didn't think it was him. You understand? Because he was 58 years old, never been to a doctor, as healthy as a horse. And if he wasn't like he was, he might, well, he wouldn't be living today, he'd be in his 90s, but he could be. But he went to work and he didn't feel good, and instead of going to the doctor at work, he went out, he got on the bus, he took the bus 45 minutes back to Anderson Ferry, got off the bus, walked up to my house, got to the 4th step, and saw my mom, and that's where he died. So who knows, it was a blood clot, and if he'd have went to the doctor at the bank, the doctor might have did something, you know, give him some blood thinner real fast or something like that. It could have saved his life. But that's just the way it happens. But he got to go to spring training. He got to see me win Rookie of the Year. He got to see me play in a World Series. He got to see me win batting titles. You know, so there's a lot of positive things.
I think Pete took his dad's legacy onto the field every day that he played. And I think that's the single biggest thing, the biggest influence he got from his dad.
Of course, I want to see Pete go on and improve. I'm sure he hasn't reached his peak, and you'd like to see the Reds win the pennant and win a World Championship. And if Pete's lucky enough that he doesn't run into any serious injuries, I'd like to see him have a lengthy career, and with what he could accomplish, eventually I would say that he might have a shot at the Hall of Fame.
For generations of American men, baseball is a big part of the way fathers bonded with sons. From knee-high games of catch to coaching Little League to the first visit to a big league ballpark, baseball was something sacred passed down from one generation to the next. Harry Francis Pete Rose was like many men of his generation. He grew up loving baseball, and he shared that love with young Pete. But Harry didn't just teach his son how to play baseball. He taught him how to live his life. For Harry Rose, there was no second place. There was no compromise. There was absolutely no quit. Harry taught Pete to play with heart. And Pete responded by becoming the heart of one of the greatest baseball dynasties of all time. The Big Red Machine.
I really think the Big Red Machine was born under Dave Bristol, and Sparky just made it the Big Red Machine. But Dave had a lot to do with developing the Big Red Machine. You got to remember, I came up in '63. Perez came up in '65. Helms was Rookie of the Year in '66. Bench was Rookie of the Year in '68. Okay, I won my first batting title in '68, and Johnny was Rookie of the Year, and Perez did his thing, and Lee May come along. So we start leading the league in offense in those years, but then when Sparky came in 1970, we won our first pennant, and they start calling us the Big Red Machine then. Sparky's he was the driver of the Big Red Machine, and Sparky's the one that made it tick, because everybody liked him. Everybody did what he asked us to do. He understood people. I don't know if I've ever met a person that understood people like Sparky did. Johnny Bench is the greatest catcher you and I will ever see play the game of baseball. Johnny was a Gold Glove catcher that would knock in 100 runs and hit 40 home runs. Joe was by far the most intelligent player I ever played with. Joe used his brains along with the talent that he had to become the star that he was. Tony Perez was probably the best clutch hitter with men in scoring position. He had dollar signs in his eyes when a guy was in second or third base, especially with 2 outs. David Concepcion was a great young shortstop that understood his role. You know, when I sit here today and think about David Concepcion, how hard it must have been for him. You know, Davey probably didn't get his just due, here in Cincinnati if he'd have been on another team. You know, it's the same way with Griffey. Griffey was a tremendous player too. You know, he was a solid player, potential batting champion type with a lot of base hits, steal a lot of bases, beat out a lot of infield hits. George is a quiet guy. Unlike today, he's the noisiest guy in the world, never stops. George is a very strong guy and fit right in the middle of our lineup as a superstar home run hitter. Cesar was a real quiet guy, but just a great defensive player and a great arm, and Sparky patted him around the lineup where he actually made him a 300 hitter. We were just fortunate and lucky to have the greatest catcher in the history of baseball come through the Reds organization and play for the Reds, okay? And I believe, if not the top second baseman in the history of baseball, certainly at the top 2 or 3, Joe Morgan, come and play for the Reds. And I don't want to give anybody more accolades than Tony Perez on RBIs. And that's another guy that consistently got 1,650 or 1,600, 1,700 RBIs. Now, that doesn't sound like much when you got guys that got 2,200, okay? But don't forget, Tony Perez hit after Johnny Bench, okay? Johnny Bench didn't leave a lot of ducks on the pond. So that just tells you how good Tony Perez was right there. He's knocking them in after Johnny's knocking them in. And it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to knock Johnny in from first or second base. You had to hit that ball off the wall.
We got 8 guys go out there every day who know how to play the game and know how to win a game for you. Defensively, offensively, running, and speed. We got everything. We got everything to win ball games, and everybody in the league know that, and they tend to stop us, but they cannot.
Sparky's job was pretty easy. Pretty easy. His toughest job was figuring out a way to tell the guys that played every day he wanted to rest them for a day, because no one wanted to take a rest. We all read about Wally Pipp. He took that day off. Lou Gehrig played 2,300 games after that. We all read about that. It can happen. You know, don't ever leave your position, because the guy might go out there when you're off and he might look good. He might not play good, but he might look good. He might be out there for the next 5 years. I wouldn't go let anybody take my position.
He played with injuries. I think he played with, at times, broken bones that, or severe sprains that he had to overcome. Coming out of a baseball game or not starting a baseball game was totally alien to the way Pete Rose approached the game of baseball.
It was a 7-game series. I remember that. And the only 1-run game was Game 6 here in Cincinnati against Blue Moon Modem. We beat them 6-1 on the Saturday game. Every other game was a 1-run game. And, you know, they had some good ball players. I mean, they had Joe Rudy and Bert Campaneris and Catfish Hunter and Raleigh Fingers, Hall of Famers. Reggie Jackson, although he was hurt, he didn't play in that series. And they beat us in the 7-game series and went on to win the next year and the next year. So they won 72, 3, and 4, which is very, very difficult to do. I don't care what league you're playing in. To win 3 straight world championships is pretty difficult.
But it was a good series. But we feel like getting more speed, more better pitching, good pitching, and better defense. I think it was the key for us on the next couple of years.
I slid in the second, and I came up. I did a pop-up, we call it a pop-up. And when I came up, I went like this, and I hit him. And in those days, we used to wear sunglasses where you could hit your bill and the glasses would go down, okay? And I hit him, and the glass, the thing right here, like, cut him. And he went on and made a double play. Then he went like that, and he saw the blood. And when he saw the blood, you know, he thought I shouldn't have slid that way, and he called me a name. And I just grabbed him. And, you know, he's a little guy. And matter of fact, I played with him later on in Philadelphia. And I grabbed him. When I grabbed him, Wayne Garrett come running in from third base and did a body slam on the back of me. And all hell broke loose because of Wayne Garrett.
Pedro Bourbon, oh my goodness, he was the guy who he come out the bullpen, he broke the cage because he don't want to open. He kicking it and opening, and then when he got there, and he was all his fight.
Bourbon is the type of guy, if you go to Iraq or you go to Vietnam or you go to Afghanistan, you want him right behind you or in front of you because he'll take care of everybody. And that's the way he was with me. And he just wanted to get in the middle of it. And then he was so mad that he picked up a Met hat and he started biting it, you know, and throwing piece after piece off of it. And lo and behold, the clubhouse guy for the Mets was out picking up the pieces like he was going to glue the hat back together or something.
I remember Cleon Jones, the left fielder for the Mets. He was looking for his hat, and Pedro was looking for his hat too. And Pedro, he was so mad, so blind or whatever, I don't know. He just picked one up and he tried to put him on. It don't fit because his hair was bigger than Jones. And then when he looked at that, how you say Mets, he started biting on it. He started biting on it, and then I remember John was beside me, and he said, "Where's my hat?" I said, "John, leave it alone. Don't go out there. Leave it alone. Just get another one, will you? Please, just get another. Don't start that thing again, because I know when he go out there, Pedro gonna go crazy again." Because he was crazy already.
The fans were kind of unruly, to say the least. I mean, they start actually throwing whiskey bottles, and in those days, you were allowed to take bottles into the ballparks, which you're not allowed to do today. And they were coming out of the third deck, and the umpires actually told Sparky to put me in center field because in those days, at Shea Stadium, there was no people sitting in center field. And Sparky says, "You guys got to contain this audience. I'm not changing my defense because of the behavior of the fans." And that's when Willie and a couple of the other Mets went out to try to calm the people down. Sure, the Mets got great fans, but there was something different with that crowd. I mean, I don't know what it was, but they just were mad. They were angry mad, like riot type angry mad, which is very unusual for the game of baseball.
I'll never forget the night, and this team was floundering early in the '75 season. They were not winning, and I remember coming to the ballpark one day, and I did a pregame radio show with Sparky, and before I turned the tape machine on, he said, "There's something you need to know before we start this program." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Pete's going to play third base tonight."
He said, "Well, I'd like for you to change positions." I said, "Sure, whatever you want, man. I love you. You're like my dad. What do you want me to do?" He said, "I want you to play third base." And I said, "Okay, when?" He said, "Friday." And I remember it was Gary Nolan's first day back against Atlanta Braves. And the first hitter up was a guy named Ralph Garr, who could run like the wind.
The old adage in baseball was, you know, the baseball will eventually find you wherever you may be playing. Well, it found Pete right out of the gate. And Garr hit a hard ground ball to Pete's glove side, to his left side. He took a step or two to his left. He caught the ball on the bounce. He stumbled, and then he righted himself, and he made the throw to Perez at first base, and Garr was out. And that was the beginning of it.
We went on to win back-to-back World Series. So Sparky's decision to put George Foster in the lineup really worked. It gave us a lift.
Pete made himself a good whatever. He made himself a good third baseman. Pete was a second baseman. He came up, I think he was Rookie of the Year at second base, the Reds in Old Crosley Field when I was a little boy. He was a second baseman and a third baseman. He played in all-star games at third base. And then he was a right fielder. And then he was a left fielder. And then he was a damn good first baseman for us. He made himself good at all the positions he played.
That's the way Pete was. I mean, Pete do anything to get the team better, to win. And you ask him to move to, I guess, to behind the play, he might do it. I mean, because that's the way he started. He was doing it in high school. But you asking him to go to third, to go to the outfield, he go out there and do his best. He do his best.
In a lot of cases, he said, well, I'll adapt to a new position that will allow another player to play that needs to play. I'm not going to be the greatest player at that position, but I will be fundamentally sound as a right fielder, a left fielder, a third baseman, or a first baseman. You know, I'll be fundamentally sound. And he sure was that at first base.
And the '75 World Series is probably the only World Series ever that gave you a Super Bowl flavor. And how did it give you a Super Bowl flavor? It's very rare to have that many potential Hall of Famers playing in a World Series on both teams. Usually in a World Series, the two teams are really good teams. But, you know, on our team, you had you know, 4 potential Hall of Famers, and you had a Hall of Fame manager. Yastrzemski was a Hall of Famer. Fisk was a Hall of Famer. Freddie Lynn had a Hall of Fame career, and Dwight Evans was a great player too. And they had Jim Rice, who was hurt during that World Series. He's a Hall of Famer. So there's a lot of personality on that ball club. And the games were exciting games because they were all one-run games. And it was down to the last inning. And we had the controversial play with Armbruster and Fisk in Cincinnati. So that added, you know, kerosene to the fire. And not only were we good personality-wise, but we were good as far as the games were played. It rained so hard we couldn't go to the ballpark to work out. So they had an indoor facility at Tufts University, which is a great university. And we're on our bus, and we're going to the workout, and the bus driver got lost. And we stopped in this gas station, and we're in uniform. And Sparky got off the bus to go ask the attendant where Tufts University was. And the expression on the guy's eyes when he saw this number 10 get off the bus, he's going, and he knew who we were. He knew we were the Reds, and he was a Red Sox fan. And he told us to go out of the gas station and take a right, and it was a left. So we went 2 or 3 more blocks, and it wasn't where he said it was, so we backtracked, and it was where it was supposed to be. So he didn't want us to practice. He told us a lie of where Tufts University was.
And now we would start yelling at the guy, say, what, you don't know the way, or you just trying to take us back to Cincinnati?
I can't believe the bus driver didn't know where Tufts University was, but maybe he knew and he just didn't want to get us there. I guess he figured if we didn't get there by a certain time that the university would close.
I can't imagine that when they talk about how great this game is, that they would use any other game as an example of the greatness of the game of baseball than Game 6 of the '75 World Series.
The World Series, everybody know, was hard because we was winning on the 6th game, like everybody remembered, and Garber hit the home run, and then Fitz hit the other one, and we were tied. We weren't happy, but you know, we want to win there, but we know we got another game. We know we got another game to play, and we knew, and Sparky, especially Sparky knew, we hasn't won a World Series yet. We've been in 2 World Series, and we lost both of them, and playoff, and we lost that one too. He knows. He was a little nervous.
I don't think it shook Pete's confidence whatsoever. I think he was looking forward to Game 7 with every confidence in the world that they were going to win. I know Sparky was up most of the night. The Reds had a super scout by the name of Ray Shore, who has since passed on, and Sparky was convinced that the Reds were going to lose game number 7.
So Sparky, we got these guys right where we want them. They got to come back and play Game 7. How are they going to be that high and come back and play the next day and play for 9 innings? And we come back and won the next game, even though we were behind 3-0.
Yeah, I remember I was the 5th hitter on that inning, and I tried to get together. I tried to get my bat and get ready, and I saw Sparky in the tunnel. You know, he was walking very fast and scratching his head and taking his cat out, and then he come back. I said, Sparky, what's going on? What happened? He said, what happened? He said, you were losing 3-0. We're supposed to be the big red machine, and we hasn't won anything yet. Man, we have to do something here. Say, Sparky, don't worry about it. We get a couple games in there. I hit one. Don't worry about it. We get back in this game. And then I remember when Lee threw that blooper pitch and a slow pitch, and I hit him off the side, and we come back, and there was a 3-2 game. And then after that, I knew we were going to win it because everybody in the dugout was popped up, and everybody was alive again, and even Sparky was alive. And then, you know, we come back, tied the game, and winning, and we sorted it out. But when we got to that last out, and there was something.
And this one belongs to the Reds.
I think players, in a general sort of way, were at times, if not at all times, afraid to go out there and play with anything less than the best they had, because he set the tone. And I think that tone was climaxed by him receiving certainly one of the bigger awards that any athlete can attain, being named Sportsman of the Year and being on the cover of Sports Illustrated, which, as years unfolded, became commonplace and somewhat ho-hum for Pete, because he was certainly on the cover of Sports Illustrated more than once.
I think the best commercial I ever did was I did a Milk Duds commercial. We did it in Chicago during the game with the Cubs. I don't know how the cameraman did it, but and I had one of those games where I made diving plays, and I went from first to third and head first, and I hit a double and went head first, and I made a great diving play, and they got everything on tape. Then I started doing Aqua Velva commercials. You know, the first time I did it with Vic Tayback, who was Mel on Mel's Diner.
Hey, Pete Rose! What's a man really want from an aftershave? Not fancy perfume. Or fancy bottles. Not fancy prices. No! A man wants to smell like a man. There's something about Aqua Velva. He wants to be cool and refreshed. There's something about Aqua Velva. A man wants to feel like a man. Feel like a man. 'Cause there's something about an Aqua Velva man.
Then I did it with Betty Buckley, who was mother on 8 Is Enough. Then I did it with Ganilla Hutton, who was on Hee Haw. Then I did it with, then I started going downhill. I did it with Joe Morgan. I was slowly but surely working my way down. Then I ended up doing it with Joe. We did that at Fort Lauderdale. It was a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden the guy took over Aqua Velva, who wanted the surfers, ice blue Aqua Velva, not, hey, Pete Rose, what's a man really want from an aftershave? He wants to be cool and refreshed. There's something about an Aqua Velva man. I remember before the game, Sparky called me in the office. He said, Peter, he says, what I want you to do when Mickey Rivers comes up, I'm playing third base, as you know. He said, I want you to get close enough you can shake hands with him. I said, really? He says, yeah. He says, I watched tape all year on him. And he says, you can't hit a ground ball to left field. He cannot hit a ground ball to left field. We're going to smother him and take the bunt away from him.
And that was funny because Pete looking around like he says, you're not to give me kill. He won down here, but Pete doesn't care. He whatever Sparky say he does, and he was playing right in front. He could check hand with him.
Making that strategic decision to play that close into the plate every time that Rivers came to the plate to bat took him completely out of the series. I mean, that move played such mind games with Mickey Rivers that they wrote him off. He was a non-factor from the very first time that Pete came in within, I don't know, 20 or 25 feet of home plate.
He actually hit one right to me, a line drive, not a ground ball, and I caught it right here, and I just snapped it like that right in his face. And it just killed him because he couldn't bunt because it was cold. I'm almost breathing my breath on him. That's how close I was to him.
It was ridiculous. I've never seen a third baseman play that close to home, and it turned out to be one of the great decisions of a very, very brief World Series.
You know, we went from the best World Series ever in '75 to sweeping. Well, actually in '76, we did something, I don't know if it's been duplicated since then or not. We swept the Phillies and we swept the Yankees. We swept everybody. We should have been in the vacuum cleaner business. We were sweeping everybody.
The Yankees, we know they don't have a chance because we just want to win. We want to win, and we knew we can win, and we got a better team, and we know we were better. I know they got great team, great players, and I want that, great pitching, but we were better.
Yep, I think that was the first mistake they made. Because I don't think, even to this day, I don't think they understood the value of Tony Perez with Geronimo, with Bourbon, with Concepcion, with the Latin players, Armbrister. I don't think they really understood that they looked at him as like a father.
I took it hard. I mean, I never say much about it because that's the way the game was, or whatever. You know, it was a guy there sitting there on the bench for 2-3 years. Dan Driesen, he was a good player. And he was younger. He was 10 years younger than me. And he wasn't making that much money. And the Reds had to make a decision, or to trade him or trade me. And trade an older guy or trade a guy who is 10 years younger.
And I'll never forget the next spring after he was traded. I think it might have been a week, maybe a bit longer than that in the spring training, when Sparky said, we've made a terrible mistake. We cannot fill that void that has been created by Tony being traded away. Well, it was too late then.
I mean, Tony Perez there's not a better guy in baseball. It's better for a team than him. He just wants to knock in runs. He just wants to knock in runs and win. You know, they talk about me hating to lose. I think Tony Perez hates to lose just as much as I did. And we started out together. When I think I met this guy 50 years ago, it's amazing. It's amazing that, you know, that he's been my friend for 50 years. Most people don't know somebody 50 years. I love Tony Perez. I'd do anything for Tony Perez.
I was there for his 3,000 hit. I was playing the Expos. I remember he got the hit, and I was right playing first base for the Expos. We still got the picture, and me and Pete over there, and that was great. And that was very special because one guy deserved to be a king hit or hit king or whatever you call it. That's Pete Rose, because he worked for every hit he got on the big leagues. It's not you saying, I'm going to do this. You say it and did it the same. I mean, you got to be special. Pete was something. He's special because every goal he's putting for himself, he made it.
I've never been around an athlete who handled the media with such class and with such dignity and with such humor, with incredible pressures being brought to bear. Now, maybe he didn't feel the pressures, being who he is, but I just stood back in awe and watched him, for instance, sit down 45 minutes before a game and give a 10-minute interview to a writer from Sports Illustrated, and then turn right around and give a 5-minute interview to some young man who represented a bi-weekly newspaper in some small town in Kentucky, and make him feel the same way he made that Sports Illustrated writer feel, that he was the only one in the world.
We were playing in Philadelphia, and I ended up dropping down a bunt to get a base hit to extend the streak in the 30s or something like that.
Mike Schmidt was playing on the other side of East Kleenex. I mean, there it was right there. If you want the hit, go ahead and have it. And Pete didn't disappoint. Now, I know everybody would deny that today.
You know, I fancied myself as a third baseman that did not need to play up real close to stop the bunt. I mean, I loved to charge and barehand and throw the guy out, so I didn't ever believe, especially in Pete's case, that I needed to move up and what they call deny the bunt. In other words, play so far up that he couldn't bunt and make him swing the bat. In the first game of a doubleheader, he kind of caught me back, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he was 0 for 3 at the time, and you know, the streak was going to end, and Pete took off out of the batter's box and dropped a blueprint bunt down the third baseline, and you know, I went in to barehand it and bobbled it, and the streak stayed alive. And then the next game, this is vintage Pete Rose. In the next game, Danny Ozark, in the old Riverfront Stadium, the dugouts were right there by the third baseline, and Danny Ozark called me Dutch. Called me the dumb Dutchman. He got away with that when I was really young. But he'd get, Dutch, move up, don't let him punt, move up. So the Dutchman, the dumb Dutchman, said, okay, I don't want to, but I moved up like 3 or 4 steps, and next pitch, he hit a line drive just out of my reach to my left to continue the hitting streak.
And when I went by him, he looked at Danny and says, now what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do now? I'm standing at first base laughing. Because I heard Ozark yell, get in! You know, I didn't try to hit it by him, it's just where the pitch was.
He just sort of took advantage of me with a bunt, And then it got me to move up so he couldn't bunt. And then he had a line drive right to my left that I dove for and couldn't get. Kept the streak alive.
And then I got all the way up to 44 games. And even the game it ended, I hit 2 of the damnedest, hardest ropes you ever seen.
Pete, being the kind of player he was, had to understand that the guy standing 60 feet 6 inches away, in this case Gene Garber with that corkscrew windup, why he felt like he was compelled to give him an opportunity. And so I was a little bit disappointed in the way Pete approached that particular at-bat that resulted in him striking out and the batting streak coming to an end.
First of all, Garber was a good relief pitcher, and I'm not saying that he's supposed to throw one right down Broadway in the express lane. You don't do that in the game of baseball. But the score, there was 2 outs and nobody on, the score 17-4 in the 9th inning in favor of the Braves. And what my complaint was, and it's not even a legitimate complaint, it is for me, but if I'd have went up there without a bat and stood like this, he'd have walked me on 4 pitches. Okay? So he had me doing something I'm not used to doing, and that's swinging the balls 8 inches outside or 8 inches inside. And the 3-2 pitch was this far outside. And I know we're not going to score 12 runs or 13 runs to tie the game. So I know this is it. It's either hit or go home. And I swung and missed at the last pitch, and it was go home. I think the worst decision they ever made was getting rid of Sparky. And I must say, I don't know the order, but all I know is they got rid of me on a Friday and Sparky on a Saturday, or Sparky on a Friday and me on a Saturday. So in other words, they got rid of both of us within 2 days. And I went to free agency, and Sparky went to Detroit. Well, what did he do in Detroit? If you went to Detroit today and you talk about Sparky Anderson, they dearly love this guy. They love him as much there as they do here. What did he do there? Win the World Series. Built a team to a competitive championship team. Some guys can do it, some guys can't. Sparky just happens to be one that can.
Anytime somebody offers up a team and they mention that team in the same breath with those Big Red Machine teams, I simply say, okay, let's go position by position by position, and you tell me who you'd rather have. And every time there are more Reds than there are whoever that other team might have been. It was unquestionably a hell of a run.
Now, if you want to say we're the greatest, go ahead, I'm not going to disagree with you. But we had everything that a fan needed to be entertained at the ballpark. We had speed, we had defense, we had daring base runners, we had golden glovers, we had power, we had a white Hall of Famer, we had a black Hall of Famer, we had a Spanish Hall of Famer, we had a Hall of Fame manager. And to my knowledge, no other team can ever say that.
With the Big Red Machine dismantled, Pete had to leave behind the team and the city that he loved. But for him, this was just one more in a lifetime of challenges. Strange as it may have been to see Charlie Hustle wearing Philly pinstripes, for Pete it wasn't about the uniform. It was about winning. It was about playing the game the way he believed it should be played. It was about being a champion.
The first stop we went to was Atlanta, and Ted Turner picked us up. He wanted me to sell TV for him. I didn't think I could turn that team around, so I passed there. And the next day we went to St. Louis, and Augie Bush was in the hospital because he had a hernia operation. And we took the tape in there and we talked to Mr. Bush, who really wanted to use me to replace Lou Brock, who retired after the '78 season. And I didn't want to do that, and he offered me a Budweiser distributorship. The next day we went to Kansas City, and Mr. Kaufman owned the Kansas City Royals. You know, he's the only one who really did his homework. He says, you know, with the DH you could probably beat the Ty Cobb's record, because I know your dad played football when he was 42 years old, and he offered me an Orwell. Then I went to Philadelphia and met Mr. Carpenter over in Wilmington, Delaware. And we told him that other guys offered us $800,000. He was a DuPont. And they got a lot of money. And he went, oh my God, that's almost $1 million. And then of course I negotiated with the Garber, Mr. Garber, not only down in Lexington, Kentucky at the farm, but up in Columbus, Ohio at Darby Dam Farms, and they offered me racehorses. The next day when we got back home, Ted Turner calls us back, and he says, now I offered you guys $4 million for 4 years. He said, I'll give Pete $100,000 a year, every year after he retires until he dies, plus the $4 million. And I told Reuben about the Phillies because we had played them in the playoffs a couple of years, and I knew they just didn't have an experienced player to lead them to get them over the top. Mr. Giles called him back, and I think I'm accurate on this. What he did is he went out and got a couple of the sponsors of the Phillies games to kick in the money to get the $3.2 million it took to sign me to the contract. And that's why I ended up in Philadelphia.
I think winning, wherever he went was important to him. Pete would not have worked well going, after having the success that he had here with this team, to leave here and initially go to some team that could not win. It wouldn't have worked.
What that meant, it was nice because Musial got the 40s, and did Mays get the 50s, and Aaron got the 60s. When you're in the same breath with those guys, and I got the 70s, and Mike Schmidt, my teammate, got the 80s. When you play baseball, you have eight position players, you have a pitcher, okay? Now, in my mind, I got to play with the greatest catcher ever, Johnny Bench. I got to play with the greatest third baseman ever, Mike Schmidt. And I think the greatest second baseman ever, Joe Morgan. So there's only 8 positions, and I played with 3 of the greatest of their position in the history of baseball. Then you throw you throw Tony Perez in there. I mean, so half of the positions, I got to play my whole career with the best at their positions. Think about that.
He was Pete. I mean, everywhere he go, he's gonna do the same thing. He's gonna play the same way, and he's gonna take the media with him because he's that type of player. He's an impact player. He got to the Phillies, and he made the Phillies better. He made the Phillies better.
And I think the name that immediately comes to mind in that respect would be Mike Schmidt. I think Mike Schmidt would tell you today, and Mike Schmidt's the best third baseman, I think, in the history of baseball. But I think Pete had an awful lot to do with Mike ultimately getting to where he got in terms of ability, in terms of productivity at the plate, in terms of his ability to play defensively the position of third base.
It wasn't that I needed a little bit of coaching here and coaching there. What I needed was for a guy like Pete to come and say something like he said. He's the best player I've ever played with. He doesn't know how good he is. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's already a Hall of Famer. We didn't say things like that to each other. You know how good you are? You know how good you can be? It was more like getting on each other all the time. You got to run that ball out. I mean, getting on Bull because he was fat, or Bull because he was a little whiny guy. Or something. We were always looking at things about each other that, we could write each other about. And when Pete came, I think all that stopped because he literally, he didn't come to put a stop to it, but he became so much the center of attention that we all stopped ragging each other. Pete would rag us a little bit, but it was always in a positive way, He'd give us nicknames, and he'd say good things to us, Herbie, he'd call me. Herbie, you know how good you are? Just to hear that made me go out of the dugout and onto the baseball field with my chest out. If Pete Rose is saying that to me, every guy in that opposing dugout, when I run out on the field in Vet Stadium's got to feel that way. If Pete feels that way, he's not just saying that. So it elevated my sense of confidence and my sense of myself as a player unbelievably. Bo was the same way. He couldn't verbalize that, he didn't. But just being around Pete made him better. Being around made Greg better, made everybody better having Pete around. I don't think Pete was calculating. I think it was just Pete's nature to bring that out in people.
you know, they saw me play day in and day out for 79 season, and you know, I just played the way I always played. And you know, when you go through adversities and you go through slumps and you go through these different things, and you continue to play hard and bust your chops and grind it out you know, when you're in the batter's box, I really got their respect. I think I really got their respect, and we didn't win in 1979, but we come right back in 1980, and you know, I think the stage was set for a real good run and a real good ball club, and we did. We won the Eastern Division, and we won against Houston in the playoffs, and went to the World Series and beat Kansas City.
We had Pete Rose, and it wasn't about Philly's failure in the previous years anymore in Philadelphia. It was the optimism of what was ahead of us, because now Pete Rose was the leader of our team. That's got to be a once-in-a-history sort of a play. Bottom of the ninth of the World Series, and a pop-up by the dugout, and it pops out of Boone's glove, and Pete's there to catch it? Geez, what are the odds of that?
The only thing I had to worry about was slipping on the horse manure was over there, because the horses were out by the TV cameras and the dogs were on the field. I mean, I never played in the World Series before where policemen were on horses on the field, and they were in the field of play. And you know, I was worried about getting kicked by a horse, not worried about catching the ball. But fortunately, all the horses were Philly fans, and they didn't kick me or they didn't dump any loads over I'd trip, even with my spikes on.
You know, Boonie's reaction to that would be, it wasn't my ball anyway, it was Pete's ball, and he didn't hear anything, so he tried to catch the ball, and
Well, it was my ball because he's one of those guys that can run from home to first in about 19 seconds. You know, he runs so slow he kills the grass.
probably doesn't happen ever in a season, let alone in a World Series game, so that's the optimum in those for the ball. I'll never forget that. I mean, the people of Philadelphia will never forget it either.
You have to remember, when we won in 1980, the people of Philadelphia waited 86 years. You know, a lot of people waited a long time. It's a little bit like today, the Cubs fans have been waiting 102 years. So there's not that many fans waiting. They saw the last one in 1907, but the Philly fans were fanatical about the Philadelphia Phillies, and you have to go through that situation when you win, and for the first time in 86 years, and experience the feeling from the fans and everything like that until you can really talk about it. And when we won the World Series and we got in the floats downtown Philadelphia, went out Broad Street to JFK, there was 1 million people in the streets. And then when we got out to JFK, which is, you know, John Kennedy Stadium, they had 130,000 waiting for us out there.
Well, the Philly fans love Pete Rose. He's their kind of guy. Down and dirty, get dirty, incite the opposition. And of course, it was easy for Pete to become that because it was natural for him. Plus, he made contact all the time, you know. And he just looked to the fans like he was playing as hard as any man could ever play on every pitch, you know, every out, every at-bat, every trip around the bases. It was balls out, always, and that's what Philly fans want to see.
You know, my take on it is, I can't remember anybody diving into bases other than Pete. I mean, somewhere along the line, somebody had to do it, but Pete, the thing that used to get other teams riled was when Pete would dive into a base and he really didn't need to slide to, you know, to sort of rub it in, if you would. Round first, coming into third. There's not even a throw coming into third, and I'm standing there, and Pete gives it that all out with his helmet flying off and his arms extended, you know, about this high off the ground, and the throw goes into second. And he didn't even need to slide.
Not only the head first slide, but later on in his career, you know, when he played first base with the Phillies, and somebody would ground out for the last out of an inning, or he would catch a pop-up to end the inning, and he would spike the ball. That was his deal. And it started, I think, in Philadelphia. And the Philly fans loved it.
Only Pete would have the gall to spike the baseball into the ground on the third out, and he always did it. It's almost like spiking it right in the face of the other team. Only Pete would have the nerve to sprint to first on a walk. The guy had balls, I'm telling you. I'm serious balls.
At that time, the football players were slamming the touchdowns in the end zone, and I just developed a thing where I could slam it, especially on AstroTurf, and bounce it right into the pitcher's mound. And it irritated the fans on the road, and it irritated the opposing players. Who cares? I'm trying to beat them. I could care less if they get pissed at me. You know, let them try harder to get me out. Then they make mistakes, or let them try harder to beat you. Then they make mistakes. So it's all reverse psychology, and it's all aimed to do one thing, and that's help you win the game.
I'll never forget the last night against Nolan Ryan. He got a base hit to tie Stan Musial, the first at bat, and this was the last game of the first half of the season, as determined because the players were going to go on strike after that game. And Nolan Ryan struck him out 3 straight times after he got the base hit the first time up, and then Pete had to wait 60-some days to set the National League hit record, which he eventually did.
I think the first time up, I hit a ball, and the guy that was in charge of the fireworks thought it was a hit, and he set off all the fireworks and everything, and they put air up on the board. So then I got a hit off of Mark Littell, and of course that was 36-31, and Stan hit 36-30, and he was gracious enough to be there and come out on the field and congratulate me. And this is the same guy that I played against my first year, his last year. We were playing in St. Louis, and it was Stan Musial's last game. And they honored him before the game, and Hutch, we were down the first base line, and the Cardinals were down the third base line, and Hutch said, come up here and sit by me. You know, so it was the manager, then the coaches and the players, and he said, I want you to watch this. You know, because it was pretty obvious I was going to be Rookie of the Year. And I sat next to Hutch and watched the whole ceremony, and before the game, Stan Musial gave me a ball. It says, to Pete, best wishes for many hits. And that day, he got a hit to my left. I was playing second base, and he got a hit to my right. So he got 2 for 4 in the last game he played. And everyone come out and honored him and gave him this and gave him that. It was quite emotional because, you know, Stan Musial was, he's one of the top 5 players in the history of baseball. And I got to play against him. After the game was over, we have a press conference underneath the stadium. And there's a couple hundred guys in the media there. And all of a sudden, and I'm answering questions, and this guy comes up and he puts his phone down and says, hold on for the president. So the phone rings, I pick it up, I say hello, and they said, well, hang it back up. And this happened 3 times. You know, and I think Ronald Reagan was in Russia. And finally, I pick it up, and he says, hey, Pete, this is the president. And I said, how you doing? Everybody laughed. What the hell am I supposed to say? And then he said, fine. And I says, well, I'm sure glad a missile went on its way, Mr. President, because it was real hard to get through to you. All right, it took 4 phone calls for me to get through to you. And he just laughed and congratulated me for beating the record and said, carry on.
That's what Pete was about. He was about milestones and goals and attaining them, and nothing was going to stop him. And I think the greatest accomplishment Pete may have, and he may not talk about it much, but Pete Rose has played in more winning baseball games than any player in history.
I played in 1972 winning games. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm a baseball player who play 162 games, that makes me the biggest winner in the history of sports. Because football only plays 18 or 16. Hockey only plays 82. You know, basketball only plays 82. Nobody in any of those sports is ever going to win 1,900 games. Just think, if you come up tomorrow and you play 19 years and your team wins 100 games every year, and only one team the past year won 100 games, the Yankees, you're still going to be 72 shy of 1,972 winning games. That's a lot of winning games. And that's really, if you think about it, that's a tribute. That's a tribute to all the great teammates that I had. Go back with Frank Robinson, you know, go back with Veda Pinson, you know, go back with Andre Dawson, go back with Johnny Bench. I mean, go back with Mike Schmidt, whether it was Montreal, Philadelphia, early Cincinnati, late Cincinnati with Larkin and Paul O'Neill. I always had good players on my team, and I always had offensive players. You know, good offensive players and players who thought about playing in the World Series, who wanted to play in the playoffs. That's the kind of players you want on your team. That's why I like Derek Jeter, because, you know, I know they won in 2009, was the first time since 2000, but he won 3 or 4 his first 6 years. You want a guy on your team that expects to go to the World Series every year. That's the kind of player you want to be surrounded with. They didn't call us the Whiz Kids, they called us the Wheeze Kids.
A great team and a fun run to have Morgan and Perez and Rose all on the same team. It was like, hey, you guys, here's a year where we're going to let you pretend it's just like the old Big Red Machine days. You're going to have the three Hall of Fame players on your team. Take advantage of this year, enjoy this year, and man, we sure did.
And I remember going to spring training. We got this accident, and Von Hayes, the right fielder, Von Hayes got hurt, and he cannot start the season. And I have a good spring training. I was swinging good, and I was doing good. And P asked Pat Corrales, the manager. P said, I moved to right field, but get Doug in there until Von Hayes come back. And P did that. He moved to right field, and P was 40 years old too, or 41. P is never my age. And P moved to right field to make a room for me in first.
We won the division and went to play the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series. Now, the outcome of that wasn't so great.
P and Joe had a great year, and I helped. And you know, you play with guys like Mike Schmidt, and Smitty, and Lefty, Steve Carlton. Man, they got a great team.
They had a good ball club. You know, they had some really good pitchers and some really good everyday players, and they deserve to be world champions. I lost 3 World Series, and I lost 2 of them to Baltimore. So I stay away from Maryland.
No game is as connected with history as baseball. You can still go to some of the old baseball cathedrals, Wrigley Field, Fenway Park, and see where Babe Ruth, Hank Greenberg, or Roberto Clemente played the game. For over 20 years, Pete Rose had left it all on the field. Now heading into his 3rd decade in the game, he had earned personal and team awards, World Series rings, batting titles. He was the captain of one of the greatest dynasties of all time, and he'd taken another storied franchise to the promised land. But baseball is a game of history, of legends. And to become a legend himself, Pete Rose would have to make history.
That was a hit I really wasn't thinking about, because after the '83 season, I got released by the Phillies, and I had no home. The thing about that is, you know, no one else is going to pick you up at your age, when you're that age. And, you know, I mean, I had a lot to thank the Phillies for. I'm not mad at anybody if they didn't want me no more. I've been through that before with the Reds. And I went home, and I got in the best shape I could, and ended up talking to the Montreal Expos, and they gave me a shot. Well, I think it's pretty amazing that you got your first hit and your 4,000th hit on the same date, April 13th. Your birthday's on April 14th, same day the Titanic sunk, same day Abe Lincoln was shot, and I broke the record on 9/11. So I don't know what all that means, but I'm a weird dude.
I think that was the single biggest hit that singularly and collectively made the baseball world realize that this guy was a serious threat to one day become the all-time hit leader.
Well, in reach, but you had it far away, because when you don't do well in Montreal and you're 43 years old, you know, you have to get that opportunity. I guess the best thing ever happened to me was getting the opportunity to come back here as player manager. That August and September of '84, man, the way I swung the bat, it was just, I locked it. I was going to beat the record, because the enthusiasm of the record got me through '85. Just the enthusiasm of having the opportunity, you know, to beat that record without DHing or without pinch hitting or anything like that, just going out and playing. You have to remember, Ty Cobb played in the 20s, and he was 6'2". That was a big man in those days. So nobody messed with Ty Cobb because physically he was a fighter. I mean, he was a tough guy as far as with his dukes. And Wade Hoyt said he'd be the same today as he was back in the 20s. If you throw inside, he'd look at you and he'd come out and get you. I mean, it's just the way he was. And I never got the honor of meeting Ty Cobb. Anytime you could play as many years as he did and have a 367 lifetime batting average, although I'm not convinced that if he'd have came up the same day I did and faced all the pitchers that I faced, that he'd have a 367 lifetime batting average. I'm not convinced of that. Okay, it's just impossible. But he's got the highest batting average in the history of baseball for a lifetime. So the guy could hit. The guy was a tremendous hitter. He was a tremendous base runner. You know, he was a tremendous fielder. So, you know, he was the best player of his era. And, you know, him and the Babe. And then you throw Honus Wagner in there and Cap Anson and all, you know, I know all about all those guys. And they were just, they played baseball. That's all they did is played baseball. They were great players. We used to have let's say a 9-game road trip where you go from Cincinnati to LA to San Francisco to St. Louis. Okay, we go to LA and we face Koufax and Drysdale and somebody else. We go to San Francisco and face Gaylord, Perry, and Marichal and somebody else. We go to St. Louis on the way home and face Gibson and Carlton and somebody else. So you're playing 9 games, you're facing 6 Hall of Fame pitchers. Now tell me someone that does that today. I won my first batting title the year that McLean won 31 games and Bob Gibson pitched 13 shutouts. He had a 1.13 earned run average for the year. The reason I remember that, he beat me out for the most valuable player, because that was the toughest year in the history of baseball for hitting a baseball, 68. Imagine one guy pitching 13 shutouts. That's a pitcher. That is a pitcher. I never thought anybody intimidate you hitting, but you know, I would yell at pitchers, but I'd never yell at Bob Gibson because he whipped my ass. I used to yell at pitchers I couldn't hit and hope they'd hit me, because I'm psychology. I'm trying to get on first base, and if I can't hit them, what's the best way to get on? Get hit. What's the best way to get hit? Yell at them. If they yell at you, you'll hit them. I'm not going to yell at Gibson, though. I'll take the over 4 and go to the next day. What happened, I was in a press conference down there underneath the stadium in right field, and Bernie Stowe come down and says they scratched Trout, the left-hand pitcher, and they put Reggie Patterson in. Well, at that time, anytime there was a left-hander, I played Tony Perez, which was in the lineup. But then they changed to a right-hander. And being consistent like I was most of the time, I had to change the lineup.
Well, he got to play. I told him, you got to play. I mean, you got to get that number. But I know I ain't gonna go out there. I don't need no hits. And P, you know, when I say, hey, I had to play this game, P say, okay, but I don't want to get on his way to be any. You know, I want to see that happen.
In all the years that Joe and I worked together, that's the only time that we were ever outwardly selfish enough to admit to the other that we wanted to call the hit. I told him, I said, you know, I want the hit. Joe said, I want the hit.
Pete now will take a look at a payoff pitch from the Chicago right-hander. Parker on deck. Rose levels the bat. The 3-2 to the plate. And a line Pete Rose hits a line drive into right center. He has tied Ty Cobb's all-time hit record at 4,191. He has reached the summit. There he takes off his helmet. Boy, he has handled this thing to perfection. The crowd will not stop.
And I was so happy when he tied the record in Chicago, because, like you say, take this. Like people take this, and they had to, you know, they had to cheer for him. That's something they never had. I don't think it's going to happen.
And then he came back to the plate to hit in the 7th. And the record's tied. And obviously he needs a hit to break it. He hit a ground. Joe's working. He's doing the play-by-play. And Pete hit a rocket into the hole on the left side of the infield at shortstop. And the Cubs had a shortstop by the name of Sean Dunston, who had an absolute gun for an arm. He had as good an arm for a shortstop as anybody I've ever seen. And he went into the hole and fielded the ball, got a quick throw and a hard throw to first base to just nip Pete by maybe a step, maybe even less than that. That's how close he came to breaking the record at Wrigley Field.
Actually, I slowed down going to first so I couldn't beat it out. I never told anybody that, but I didn't want to beat that ball out. I was, you know, because I was running down to first base. I looked on my back, and Marge was on my back. I was carrying Marge on my back. The night before, when I went 0 for 4, I'll never forget it. I forgot who the guy was, but you know, Jim Ferguson had the press conferences after the game and before the game in the room down at Old Riverfront Stadium. There's a couple of 400, 500, 600 riders in. And, you know, they've been following me for a couple weeks or so. And I'll never forget the one guy, he stood up and he said, Pete, he said, will you break the record? He says, I miss my kids and I want to go home. And that kind of stuck with me because I'm saying these guys are trying to do their job. They're just like in the hitting streak. They're following me everywhere that I go and everywhere I play. And I thought about that. And the very next at bat, I got the base hit. I don't know if he ended up getting divorced or not.
4191. It's a number any serious baseball fan would have told you was impossible to reach. The number itself belonged to a legend. And it was common knowledge among those who claimed to know the game of baseball best that the crown of all-time hit king would forever rest upon the head of one Tyrus Raymond Cobb. I mean, if Mays couldn't do it, if Musial fell short, if Aaron couldn't catch Ty Cobb, why should anyone believe that Pete Rose, this river rat from Ohio, would be the man to break one of American sport's longest lasting and most revered records? And who could blame them for doubting? Pete Rose was never the biggest or the fastest. He didn't have the prettiest swing or the strongest arm. But no player who ever stepped onto the diamond played the game with more tenacity or will or pure guts. And on that warm September night in 1985, it wasn't about strength or speed. It wasn't about range or height. It was about heart.
I always went down and sat down here, and here's where the bat rack was and everything, and we'd always toss before the game. So I remember whenever you get the head nod, he's ready to go. So you gotta remember, this place is 80,000 or whatever it was. So he gives me this one, and I go out on the field, and we're gonna play catch before the game. And this is the worst thing anybody could do to anybody, right?
There was a lot of tension in the crowd. There's a lot of tension in the media the day of every game. I mean, they're all waiting for that to happen.
The place goes crazy. I mean, just in an uproar. I mean, it's nuts. So I look down there to play catch, and he's nowhere to be found. He stayed in the dugout. So I'm out there by myself. I'm 15, I got a Rose jersey on, so they must think that I'm my dad.
We did have a ticket for every night that series, so you know, I'm glad that, and I'm sure I would have scrambled and tried to, you know, to continue to buy tickets if it hadn't happened that series. But like I said, I thought for sure that it would happen that series.
They're standing ovation, and I'm sitting there and my knee's starting to shake. I'm 15, my knee's starting to shake. So then he finally walks out, and then it gets even louder. So, I mean, I can't see straight. So the first, and he was really big on, you hit me in the chest when we're playing catch. Doing things the right way, you hit me in the chest when we're playing catch.
It just electricity in the air, and you knew he was gonna do it that night. Because he had went hitless the night before, and you're like, he's going to get a hit, you know, either the first at bat or the second at bat. I just felt, well, first at bat, he's going to get it over with.
He was jacked up from, because he threw me a seat. It was like, oh man. So I go to grab the ball, and I just airmailed it. And I think he knew us because he had another one in his back pocket, and I knew it all turned out to be he was just screwing around with me, but it actually made me 90,000 times better as a player or whatever as far as nerves.
I remember going to the game, and everybody knew, you know, that was you know, a night that he could do it. I mean, he had tied the record. So I remember just how bright and how crowded it was at Old Riverfront Stadium.
So then he pulls another one out, and he fires even one harder, and it's Oh man, here we go. So this one I'm choking because I don't want to airmail it because everybody's watching. I can't move. I'm ready to throw up, whatever. This one, I just choke it. It goes straight into the ground. It bounces, goes all over. He drops one of these, comes in. And I'm devastated. I'm like, because I'm mad. We usually play catch before the game, and I'm just like, man, I just screwed up. So he comes down. He said, how'd that feel? I said, Dad, it sucked. And he's like, I did that on purpose, man. Don't worry about it. I just wanted you to feel like what it was like to play in front of 80,000 people.
I was standing with my wife, Carol, and a couple of friends, and we made friends on the road because everybody in the stadium that night, we were all friends. We're out after the same thing. You talk about bringing a city together. Everybody wanting to see one guy hit a ball just into left field, just over the shortstop's head, just anything like that would be fine,
I remember every pitch coming up to that, all the flash bulbs going off, and it was a neat thing even to watch him hit, whether he got a hit or not.
And in typical Pete Rose fashion, he ended all suspense in his first at bat. And he hit the ball to left, and I felt when the ball left the bat, it was a base hit.
Kind of blooped right over there, and it hit. I mean, the whole place exploded.
Being low enough where you could see it, I think if you were really high and a lot of times when you're high in a stadium, you can't gauge, how far it is or where it is. But being as low as we were, we had a good look at, kind of where it was. So, I mean, we knew pretty much right away that it was, going to drop in there and be a base hit. So, I mean, I know right around as everybody went nuts, right? It wasn't kind of like, and then go crazy, to wait and see if it dropped. But we could pretty much tell that it was going to be a hit from the beginning. So it was pretty exciting.
As soon as it happened, then it was kind of just, I think everybody kind of looked around and kind of knew that, this is something to be remembered.
I mean, I was beside myself, and I looked around me, and I was not nearly as demonstrative as most people. I mean, people were jumping around, wanting to jump on the field. It was trying to contain the exuberance, the joy of that crowd. Would have taken, the Royal Mounted Police. But then again, that was in Montreal. He didn't need them.
There were a number of things that stood out for me. Tommy Helms was the first base coach. He's a guy that was one of Pete's dear friends. Steve Garvey playing first base for the Padres with a big, big grin on his face.
He stepped forward and he grinned. He says, after about 5 minutes, he says, "What the hell did you do?" And that's what he said.
And I remember going out and kind of standing around because I was supposed to be there, but not being one of his close friends, I'd just been called up or something like that, trying to be part of the celebration, but not act like I was really part of it. So that's kind of what I remember about it. But going home and just remembering over and over, this is, as a young player, this is what you want to try to become, is somebody that puts up numbers and things like that.
I remember going out there and we got him up, and everybody. I mean, I never seen Pete cry, and I saw him cry when Petey, his son Petey, went out there and hooked him. I think that was I never seen Pete, broke down that way. And but I'm glad he did it, because to see people thinking about Pete like he was a Iron Man or something, like he don't feel anything, but he did, and like a lot of people say, "Oh, he's human." No, they were Pete was.
Everybody's clapping, and I remember the catcher Dave Van Gore. He's like, "Go back out there." I'm like, "What are you talking about, man? I'm not going back out there." Because the game's getting ready to start. I'm thinking he's gonna get mad if I. So I went out there, and I didn't know he was crying or anything. That's the first time I ever seen him cry. I mean, he's a hard-nosed guy. Charlie Hustle, whatever. But just went out and hugged him, and he was just like, "Hey, you'll catch me." And I'm just sitting there, "Yeah, all right, whatever you say." You know what I mean? But it was awesome. I mean, it was just, to get a big hug from your dad in front of all those people. But, there was nobody there, just me and him.
In the course of 9 minutes, 3 Pete Roses went in front of the people. Me getting a hit, my son come out and congratulate me and hugging me, and me thinking about my father. 3 Pete Roses in 9 minutes.
It was, for me, it was the most unforgettable scene on a field involving the Reds of anything I've seen in all the years I've been broadcasting Reds baseball.
And I don't think any of us at the time thought about the fact that you're seeing history made. Instead, I think what we thought was joy for the man down on the field, that he finally had accomplished something that he would be remembered by. And I think that was more, that was the way I felt. I didn't look at it personally and say, I was there. It didn't make any difference whether I was there. It was the fact that Pete was able to accomplish something that set him aside. And I think that that's generally the way that people felt.
The guys that were really responsible for me being there is all the coaches you had and some of the teammates you had and the scouts assigned you and the father and the uncle that mentored you and made you a switch batter and instilled the work ethic and the aggressiveness and all that kind of stuff. They weren't there. They weren't there. I could just see my dad up there just smiling at Ty Cobb and say, "Take that, Georgia Peach. The Buckeye just went ahead of you."
A standing room only crowd in Cincinnati on its feet. First inning, Pete Rose against Eric Shaw. Ball one.
It'll be interesting to see if Eric Shaw tries to pitch Pete the way Lamar Hoyt did last night, and that would be fastballs in and change-ups away.
Rose looking for hit 4-1, 9-2. And it's 1 ball, 1 strike. And he really had a confident rip.
And that was a fastball in tight, which I think is the way that they'll try to pitch him since they were successful with it last night. And that is really the only spot in Pete's batting stance that he's vulnerable in.
If you have a lump in your throat, you're only human. And it's 2 balls, 1 strike on Rose. Everybody on their feet here in Cincinnati and a worldwide television audience watching these moments tonight here at Riverfront Stadium. 2-1 pitch. And for baseball, a game that grows from its past and finds warmth in statistics, this is one of the all-time great moments.
The only thing I'm disappointed in, Ken, is I can't be down there to shake his hand right now.
Well, there is love aplenty here in Cincinnati. This, Joe Morgan, is what it's truly all about.
Yeah, Pete Rose is baseball. I think this is a great, thrilling moment for me, a guy that played with him for about 9 years and enjoyed every moment of it.
I think, Joe Morgan, you would agree that from somewhere above tonight, Pete's dad has to be looking down with a big smile on Cincinnati Riverfront Stadium. Number 4,192 that makes Pete Rose the all-time Major League Baseball hit leader. And boy, this is his game, it's his town, and it is his moment.